So, you're dating a white man.
Hey, Dad. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Ladies and gentlemen, I just found a lost hand on my ass.
I didn't leave you in America to chase men.
He's Australian, actually.
So you are dating a criminal?
Very funny. Dad, the wedding's in 2 weeks.
You're not gonna go Brazil on me, are you?
This is insane.
Go to that country, Australia, and you get 100 welcomes from 100 villages.
I'm sure we can navigate Sydney. We're from New York, so we're gangsta.
Have you ever seen a huntsman spider? They kind of like, whoa, you know?
Okay, I have to get out of here.
Hello?
To Tony and Bolude. I hear Sydney is very multicultural. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever you want, we got them. We're like a licorice, all sorts. Yeah, that's done.
I have 10 days to get 100 people from 100 different places to welcome me. Smile. Oh, not like an American. Why are you laughing?
When are we getting married?
You've lost your roots, girl. That's why your dad's upset.
Well, you should have the nerve to practically call me white.
She didn't. What? That's awful.
It is. This world will force you to make a choice, huh?
Either you choose your reasonable father, Akin, or you go against your people, your culture, your roots, your family.
It's a lie that you have to choose sides. It's a diabolical lie. You got this.
Sometimes it doesn't feel like we're even related.
We're not related, Carmen. What do?
We dance, Siam.
Hello and welcome to Made for TV Movie Club Now Playing. I'm Beth. Kierstin and I are so excited to welcome Michela Carattini and Bolude Watson, the writers and stars of the movie Carmen and Bolude. So the synopsis for Carmen and Bolude on IMDb says, best friends Carmen and Bolude must travel from NYC to Sydney, Australia, where they have 10 days to collect 100 welcomes so that Bolude's traditional Nigerian father will agree to let her marry an Australian, inspired by real events. So Michela plays Carmen and Bolude plays Bolude. Star Central Magazine writes, more than just another addition to Australian cinema, Carmen and Bolude is a historic first. The very first Australian feature film written, directed, and produced entirely by African and Latin Australian women. This milestone represents a groundbreaking step for diversity and representation in the industry, bringing fresh voices and perspectives to the screen. According to Seeded Spark, Carmen and Bolude is one of only 20 international projects selected for IFF at TIFF 2021. It is a joyful journey of identity with international perspective. So thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
We're so excited to be here. Case and I, we both love this movie so much. I mean, there's so many complexities to it. There's so much to think about. Even like 3 days later, I'm thinking about so much of what this movie offered. But I think one of the things I really loved was the very beginning with the, you started out with the quotes. And one of them that's I keep thinking about is poetry is not a luxury. It's such a beautiful sentence, and it's such a small sentence, but it's so impactful, and it was such a really great way to open up this movie.
Thank you, and thank you so much. I mean, Audre Lorde is, a queen and an icon in our history, in our literature, in the way that we look at ourselves and our identity and how we relate to each other in the world. And, the way that she was able to articulate how we bring art into our survival, how we are able to use this as an essential tool for how we can imagine life or the world to be, when we're suffering and when it is not how we would like it to be, I think is unmatched. Her ability to do that is unmatched. And, of course, when I'm really into poetry, I write poetry and I publish poetry as well. And so when I was looking for poets and quotes to start this film with, and I was looking for identities that matched our identities, Bolude's and mine, and that matched, which are also the identities of the two protagonists of the film. And so Caitlin Curtis, was a Native American writer. So I'm Indigenous Central American, so Panama, but not North America like Caitlin Curtis. But her writing still touched me as a contemporary Indigenous person in a way that no one had before. And Audre Lorde connected with her writings in this sense of nature and poetry, and how our people had used these things to uplift each other and to create community and to be well in this world. So that's why those two quotes. And I think because it's a comedy, and because it's a women's comedy, sometimes it can be taken as something that's not very deep or very serious, or it's superficial in some way. And putting those quotes at the beginning, I don't know about Bolude, but for me, it just helped give a hint that there was so much more underneath this film than the comedy that was playing on the surface. That it was, a way of saying, I'm not letting anyone get away with thinking this isn't about something much deeper.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. This is actually not the first project that you've written and starred in together. Americans in Oz was a TV series from 2018, and then a short film from TV. I need to take these off so I can read.
We can see your beautiful
because
eyes.
I'm a certain age.
Right. We're with you.
It was a TV series.
Perimenopause, here we come.
Yeah, right.
All right. Americans in Oz was a TV series from 2018 and a short film from 2018. What was the catalyst for you to work together again?
Well, first I'll make a small comment that Americans in Oz was not a short film. It was only it wasn't a TV series. It was a social media series. So it was specifically, it was specifically made for Facebook and TikTok. So all the episodes are exactly like 1 or 2 minutes long. They're very short, and really we did that as a way to try. When filmmakers talk to each other about how do you raise money to make a feature film? How do you gain interest to make a feature film? They say, well, you can try and pitch it straight away. You can try and get investment straight away. You can make a short film that's kind of a proof of concept, or you can start building your audience straight away. And as I heard many people talking about it, it sounded, to the people that my film tribe, that building the audience might be the best way for us to go, having, not having funds and not having a lot of resources. So we thought, okay, we'll build this social media series that takes the two characters. Really, there's nothing in the storylines of American in Oz that is similar to the film. It's really the two characters, and it's these moments of American and Australian culture clash. It's really about these funny moments of culture clash. And that was kind of our way of just starting to build the audience, because we thought the people who would be interested in the feature, Carmen and Bolude, are those international identities, are those people who are experiencing culture clash in Australia, are those, people who maybe are experiencing Australia in a way that isn't Crocodile Dundee, isn't that demographic. And so we did that as with the feature film in mind, and starting to try and build our audience. And it was like super quick. Like I wrote the script for it in one day, and we shot the whole thing in less than 2 days. And we put it up there as a way to try and start building our audience for eventually the feature film.
Oh, that's so cool.
So the plan all along was the feature film. That's excellent.
That's great.
What was the collaborative writing process like between you two? How did your individual personalities influence the script?
Do you want to take this one, Babe?
I think that whenever the times we've been asked this question, what stands out to me, what I just always remember was this film, the whole process was 11 years in the making, from start to finish, from like talking, feeling the need to write something, which I guess I will explain that. I moved to Australia in 2014 and immediately could just tell from watching even just commercials that there was nothing for women that looked like me. I didn't see my story. I didn't hear my stories or see myself in film or TV. And there just seemed to be a huge lack of diverse voices and diverse stories. And so I thought, well, how do we rectify that? And then I was at a masterclass workshop for Maura Fay, Lee Pickford's workshop. And that's where
director.
And that's where, oh yes, a casting director, a really amazing casting director in Sydney, Australia. And that's where I met Michela. And we met up after the workshop and talked about just, the issues that we saw in Australian film and television. Long story short, I came up with this, I proposed writing something, working together, and then wrote a really trashy, horrible script that was just horrible. And we tossed that out. And then in talking about just life in general, and telling her how I met my now husband and the whole interesting scenarios that happened with that, the whole backstory, she said, we should write that. She had similar stories too with identity and culture and stuff. And she said, you know what, let's just write this and write it for us. And so we did. So fast forward, I had a baby. She already had a son. I had 2 babies. In between that, we did Americans in Oz. And then I went to Canada. And what was supposed to be a 3-month Christmas trip turned into 20 months because COVID happened.
Oh yeah.
And so our writing process was her in Sydney, Australia, and me in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, writing each piece. We divided the script into sections, and she had a section, I had a section. And yeah, it would be she will tell this story probably better than I do, but I'd be in the closet, talking to her and still momming on the side. At the time my son or daughter was potty training, breastfeeding one kid and doing something else while writing, and I'd send my side off and she'd send hers off. And um the writing process was over 2 continents, different time zones, and a lot of, will this ever happen, and is it worth it, and what are we doing, and there's a freaking pandemic going on right now, we're doing this, and just women forging together and going ahead and doing what they believe. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but it was also helpful to, I took a lot of the Nigerian parts. I think that's what made it work, was we were able to write what we knew from our own perspective. So a lot of the Nigerian dialogue with my dad is because it's what my dad actually said to me.
Yeah, I love it.
A lot of the conversation about, you're dating a white man was actually the conversation I had with my dad on my way to work, where he actually said, you got to pick him or me. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it I think this is how women get stuff done, and people who are carers, and people who have to help look after other people in their village. And so I remember I had a moment thinking, because we were in lockdown for long periods of time in Australia. And interesting fact, I was the intimacy coordinator on the first 9 Perfect Strangers series, which was shooting in Australia during the lockdown. And so there was a lot of anxiety around, getting COVID and staying in our bubbles. And I was being flown back and forth, because when you're an intimacy coordinator, you're like a stunt coordinator. You're not a regular crew member. So I would be going back and forth to my family, and they were all in lockdown, and I was supposed to be homeschooling them at the same time. And it was just, it was hard, and it was non-traditional way of writing a script. But we had a goal, and we had a bit of a boost because Screen Australia had given us some development funding to write. So that was like, okay, well, we have to do this. So we have to find a way to do it. And it's going to be a way that's, not the traditional way, not the way that we think of, some dude at his computer with a coffee in a cafe, writing his opus magnum. This is different. This is okay, and we can do it this way, and it might take longer, but that's okay. That's us. That's how we're going to do it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that, because women in film have had to forge their own way since the very beginning of, the early days of Hollywood, right? So that you forged it, and you've also done some really great things in the meantime, right? You have, like I said earlier, first Australian film featured, written, directed, produced entirely by African Latin Australian women. That's such a remarkable feat. You must be so proud of that. Or are you just like, yeah, it's cool? I'm so proud for you.
Thank you.
I think the bigger, better question is how did your kids react to that? Were they like, yeah, okay, that's fine, great?
Well, firstly, I want to say, there's a big. It's really attractive to say you're the first person to have done something, right? There's some sort of something about that phrase, saying you're the first, that brings everybody's attention and eyeballs to that. And so there's a real effort, I think, in a lot of when people advertise themselves or what they've done, to say, oh, I'm the first this, or I was the first that, I was the first that. But in a way, it's also a very, somehow a colonizing way to approach things that doesn't always sit really well with me. And I don't know how important it is if you were the first, or if, everything that exists kind of is borrowed or reiterated or moved, from each other and passed down, in different ways, and maybe just presented differently. But I have to say, I'm proud of the fact that we made this film at all, 100%. It was very hard to get up, because it was all multicultural women, and there wasn't a lot of credibility or respect for the importance of that, particularly in the financing area. And in fact, we never got financing for this film.
Oh.
And so the fact that we got it up and we made it at all is something I'm incredibly proud of. Every single person that contributed to this film is a reason why it's here, and it took blood and sweat, and it certainly cost. It cost financially, and it cost spiritually, and in terms of my children, this is what makes it worth it for me. This is what makes it worth it for me, because they watched the film, and my then 7-year-old was crying during the sections of the film where Bolude's character feels like she's torn. Why do I have to choose? He was crying during my sections of the film where I'm describing how my abuelita, my grandmother, would make me these dresses, and I would feel like in the check boxes, on the forms, I would have to choose, and I would feel paralyzed, and I couldn't fill out these forms. And I could see how clearly my children received that message, that they don't have to divide themselves the way that the outside world has told them they have to. The message that I never got until I was, really in my 30s and 40s. And, so they are really proud, and they reached out of their piggy banks without ever being asked to contribute to making this film, and it's a rare opportunity, because you're usually the cheerleader for your children, and you're usually like supporting their projects and putting money towards, the things that they have to earn money for school. And it was this rare opportunity for reversal, where they really got on board my project, and they were my cheerleaders, and they were giving, money out of their piggy banks because they believed in me, and my mother did it and my husband did it, and they were putting in money they didn't have because they believed in me. And so that in the end is what makes all the cost worth it.
That's really beautiful.
Okay. So you talked about that there are some elements of a true story in your movie, that it is based on a true story, I should say.
I know what you're going to ask.
Well, how'd you decide? Like, what? Okay, this is in, this is out, this goes in. Because I will say, sometimes when Beth and I are doing things together, that it's like, oh no, we cannot talk about that because someone might see it or hear it or feel themselves in it, and that's not going to be okay. So how did you make decisions about that? Because there are things that I think there are interactions with other people that might help to explain the second interaction with them, but it might be embarrassing to them. So you wouldn't want to tell all of that story. So how did you decide?
For me, it was really important to tell the truth. And but as you said, there were obviously there are parts that I've kept for me, for my family. But one of my whys, I had several whys for the film, was, because I struggled with my identity. I went through my process and my journey. My children are multicultural, and I want that process and that journey easier for them. So I wanted them to get permission to tell the world who they were, and not have it thrust at them or shoved at them, or made to believe that they're whatever it is that the world thinks they are just because of how they look and present. My other why was for my dad. At the end of the film, the dedication, you see it's dedicated to our fathers. And my dad I wanted him to know that everything, and thank God my dad's here, he's alive, and has gotten to see the rough cut of the film. And so it was this message from my dad that everything turned out okay, and that his fears were valid, um but not that they were unfounded, but that I saw him, and that his fears didn't become reality, because he thought he was going to be erased by me marrying a white guy and moving thousands of miles away. So, and just to decide what I put in there, I had an honest conversation with my parents, and I, asked my dad's permission, my mom's permission, and I said, we're going to tell the story, but what do you think about it? And I'm glad my dad gave me his blessing, and he said yes, because I really wanted to help other parents and other people, and help, in your spheres of influence, your communities, and in your conversations, that the audience gets to see, what, I see that my dad struggled with that, oh, I struggled with that, and oh, okay, I'm not alone, and there is another way. There is another way. Hope's another way. Love's another way to to come together, and to, in the middle of arguments, and because we will disagree, and we will fight, but if we can come to a place of agreement and understanding, maybe the fights will be less, maybe the blood won't be that much, if at all. So the disowning part was very true. My dad did disown me. Like I said, that conversation did happen. I'm not sure if you remember the dinner table scene with the N word. That did happen too.
How could you
And I
forget?
put that in there because, and that was quite interesting because we had a lot of mixed um opinions as to whether we should put it in there or take it out, and maybe she should just say the N word. And I felt just saying the N word does not quite give the message that I want it to give. You either say it or you don't, right? Like you either go all the way or you don't. And we left it in there, and funny, we get a lot of laughs when that scene, and gasp. It's a gasp, like and then a couple of laughs that are not, should we be laughing at this? But it I love the awkwardness. I love the fact that we get to depict that we all put our foot in our mouths, and but we're all in this together. We're all trying to find community, find connection, build relationships. And in the process, we make mistakes, but hopefully you get to push past that and see the intention and the heart behind it, and accept that person. But yeah, honest conversations help me decide what to put in, and there were some pieces that I left out, but the fiction part, I think you might be able to distinguish which parts were fiction. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I would be able to. I don't know.
Really?
That's
well,
good.
Maybe. I kind of didn't think about it in those terms at all. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I love this film so much, and
Okay.
I cried actually too at the end, and actually both the scene where Bolude is like, the very large scene where she's why do I have to pick? Why do I have to pick? But also when Carmen is walking towards the end, when she's with Aunt, and then she has sort of that would you call it an awareness or just grief, or all of maybe you can speak to that, Michela, like all of the things that she was feeling up till that point.
Yeah, I do think you're right that it's a kind of accumulation of a lot of emotions and a lot of grief that she's been holding back, but also just this moment of realization that her mother actually loved her, that her mother, who had been absent her whole life, did care about her, and she didn't know it her whole life, and to find that out at her old age was just this something she didn't know that she needed to hear. So I think that I'm so glad that moment touched you, because I think it's a moment that's true for a lot of people, and it has been true in different ways in my life. Not true about it being my mother, though. My mother was very present in my life, and I would not be who I am without her, and this film would not have been made without her. And I did have a conversation with her, kind of just saying, look, I've taken any reference to my mother out of this film. And it's about Dad. It's about my relationship with Dad. It's about my legacy with Dad. My father passed away while we were writing this film, and the film did change for me after that happened. And it became a way to connect with him and my culture through him, and my identity through him, and to understand him more deeply. As you get older, as you become a parent, as you live life, you realize what your parents did for you. You realize what they tried to do. You realize their humanity and their own sense of shame and challenges in their life. And I was seeing all of that, when I was writing this, and I had wished so deeply that I could tell him, that I understand what I didn't before. I had wished so deeply I could see him again, to tell him that, like, I get it. I get everything that you went through, and I get why you said what you said, and about different things that I didn't understand, or, I could see a tiny corner of the page, but, suddenly I could see the whole page. And so the film kind of became my effort to complete the circle of that intergenerational trauma.
Yeah.
About identity and shame and the difficulty of it. And I was anxious about writing about the truth of my identity and my struggle with it because, I, of course, am incredibly aware of how light-skinned I am. And my grandmother, I was the oldest child of the oldest child, reacted very strongly to the fact that I had blue eyes and didn't look, the way I was expected to look. And I internalized a kind of message that, I look wrong. I don't look the way that I'm supposed to, and kind of working through that and working through where I belong in such a public way was scary to me. It was vulnerable. I'm like, how are people going to react to this? Like, and if I stand up and say, yes, I'm an Indigenous person, like, am I going to be stoned by people who just, don't deeply understand how identity and race and community is constructed. So that was frightening for me, and I think it was a little frightening for my family. And so, luckily, when I told my mother, I've taken you out of the film, and the other people that I'm writing about have passed away, and I took my sister out of the film too. And they're both very shy people. They don't like a lot of attention, so they're very happy to not be in the film. And in fact, the photographs at the end of the film, of course, are our real selves as children, our real fathers, our current families. And my mother and my sister both said to me, we do not want to be in any photos. Don't put us in any photos in the film. But my dad was really an extrovert. He would have loved to have had his photo in the film. So I managed to convince them that was okay. And I thought that was really good, that people could also see, how much we look alike in the face, but how different we were in skin color, and how and the relationship between us in those photos as well could be really clear as well.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, so along those lines, obviously you made the choice to have Carmen wear the contacts, and so that she, I guess, like, why? What? I think I understand why, but I guess the bigger question is, like, why did you make that choice to write that into the script?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's not something that I did in real life, but what I did do in real life was try and find ways for my identity to be seen, to be visible, to be optical to other people, in a way that it wasn't always necessarily. And I've seen kind of many other people in this situation, or with this kind of mixed identity, do different things. Like maybe they'll tan their skin a bit darker, or they'll wear eye contacts, or they'll do things with their hair. And so I really wanted to show Carmen's struggle to be seen as who she was. And I often do something. I wear feathers in my hair quite often as a way of doing that in real life. But I really focused on this one aspect of the blue eyes and her kind of injury about having come out with the wrong color eyes, according to her family, and her trying to correct that, her trying to fix that, her trying to like see herself and be seen by just having the right colored eyes. And of course it makes no difference, right? You see her with these other colored eyes and it still just looks like her. And it still is her. But that's, and I had, we played around with like different ways of showing that in the film, but in the end, the contact lenses, and that was so hard for me because I'd never worn contact lenses before. And I didn't know how difficult they were to put in. So I went to an optometrist and she tried to put them in my eye and she said, "Your reflexes are too fast. Sorry, you're going to have to go home and practice." And it took me an hour to get them in. And of course, we don't have that kind of time on a film set. So I was really going, what am I going to do? Can we like put them in VFX? No, that's thousands of dollars. We can't afford it for every frame. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to try. And then actually the actor who plays Ant, Elliot Giarola, he heard me or he saw me trying to do this. He's like, "Oh, I'm really good at that. I can help you." And I was like, no, don't touch my eyeball. And he's like, no, really, I can really help you. Just trust me. And I decided to trust him. And he opened up my eye and popped it in a second. And he did that every single time I had to wear them. And he even stayed on set when he didn't have to be there to help me with those. And yeah, he just saved my life.
Oh, that's awesome. So in addition to the themes of the cultural identity, belonging, there's also obviously the running theme of friendship and lifelong friendship at that. So you guys were friends and you wrote and starred in. So what challenges did you guys have at all? Or did you have any challenges being friends during either of the process, either writing or acting in it?
Yeah. Sorry. I don't know why. Oh, life is hilarious. Working with family is, you fight, you get along, you then fight again, and you try and figure it out, and it had ups and downs. There were times where it was just where it was challenging, and it was, it was 5 weeks shooting. It was quite quick, 4 days. We shot for 4 days, 4 days a week. But you're away from your family. There's just lots of elements and factors that can make it a challenging journey when you're filming. But I can honestly say that I learned a lot on this shoot. Learned so much about myself, about my faith, about my boundaries, about what I will do better next time. And I worked with the most amazing cast and crew, and literally the best cast and crew. And I'm thankful for that opportunity to work with Michela, with Maria. Maria was phenomenal. Our producer Yolandi, and the DP, and not Ant, Elliot and Liam, our two male leads. But yeah, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about what it takes to collaborate with other people, and what you know what you will do better next time, I guess, and what you will maybe choose not to do. Um, but yeah, this was my first in many regards, first time writing, and I got to do this whole thing, this whole process, this journey with Michela, and we've been friends for 11 years. But yeah, it was a first for me, and like I said, this might be the fourth time I'll repeat it, but you learn a lot, and I'm personally grateful for that, for the opportunity, and yeah.
I think
That's
we
all I
like
can
to
say.
use the analogy of like, producing the film kind of like giving birth to a child, and I think a lot of relationships are kind of forged with this common objective of whatever it is you're working toward, and sometimes that's raising children, and then there's like this transition, when that's done. And so I think your question was, were there challenges? Yes, of course. As I said, this cost a lot in every way. And, and I think the thing about a feature film, kind of like a child, like it continues, you don't stop being a parent just because they've left the house or because they're, older now. And so the transitions and the dynamics of what that relationship is and who you are. I remember at the beginning of the call, Beth and Kierstin, you said, you move and you grow over, the amount of times in your friendship. And I know, I met Bolude 11 years ago. I met my husband 21 years ago. I have a couple of friends that I've been friends with over 35 years. I'm not the same person that I was when I first met any of these people, and neither are they. And so I think there's always this reconfiguration of you know, do we still fit? How do we still fit? You know, what's changed, what's moved, what hasn't, you know, and how does that look? So I think we're definitely in that stage right now where the film is finished and we're figuring out the new dynamics.
I think Case has a couple more questions.
Sorry, I had to mute my crazy dogs that are in the other room.
Imagine everybody having a life outside of the room we're in.
Yeah, they're excited.
I would like to speak to the showcasing of Sydney's diverse communities and the significance of including landmarks like Auburn's, is it Gallipoli?
Yeah.
And
Gallipoli.
And Gallipoli?
Yes.
And Bankstown Art Center. Thank you for correcting my pronunciation. So just saying, you know, just like the diverse things, because people hear Sydney and they just think the Opera House, the end.
That's
right?
it. Yeah. And that's all you see, really, right? Like a lot of film that you see, that's all Opera House, Bondi Beach, and there might be a third. And it's not like that at all. Sydney has this vibrant, beautiful collection of cultures that is really absent in the film and television landscape. And I don't know, I'm not really sure why, but that's one of the things I'm really proud of and love about our film is that we do have all these beautiful cultures on display proudly. And a lot of the actors, we try to stay true to representing the cultures with the people from those cultures, except for young Bolude, but predominantly everyone else was a representation of the culture. And I think that's what we did. We did a great job doing that, having that proud voice of this is who Sydney is, and this is who she is, and there's more to her than the beach and the Opera House, and the Harbor Bridge was the third one. Those three are so iconic, and you know, but for our film, I hope I can say that now, you get to see who Sydney really is and celebrate that with the Greek, also the Greek culture is there, um, the Yoruba culture, there was actually more, but for time purposes, we had to, Michaela cut them down just to accommodate for screen time and all. But there were quite a few more other cultures we would have put in there if we had the opportunity to.
Also, sometimes we couldn't get the locations. It's very tricky sometimes to get locations that are religious, also places of religious practice, like the Sydney Morrigan Temple, which I only got because my husband's a classical Indian dancer, and they absolutely, you know, had such huge respect for him that I managed to say, "Hey, he's gonna be dancing in the film. Can we film there?" And they said yes, which was I think it's such a beautiful shot, that temple in the film. And all of these places and all of these people are people from our world and our lives, in our real lives. And you know, Sarah Mansour, who started Bankstown Poetry Slam, you know, that we filmed at the Bankstown Art Center. It's such a vibrant community of poets. You know, it's a very Middle Eastern community, although there's other cultures there as well. And they've done this just incredible thing of taking grief and anger and you know, the suffering of their communities and turned it into art and turned it into incredible art and lifted each other up in that way. And I wanted to celebrate her. I thought to myself, why is nobody else talking about this woman who did this thing that is incredible? And I rang her and I said, can I put you in my movie, please? And she said, yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, she couldn't play herself, but she chose the person who played her in the Bankstown Poetry Slam. The Bharatanatyam, the classical dance community, like my husband was in this dance group, and I just thought I have to show the world how cool they are and put them in the film. Auntie Deb, who's the Aboriginal auntie, in the film. She lives in my local community as a local elder. She absolutely is my auntie and my elder, and she's a living moment in history of the stolen generations in Australia when they took all the mixed children, of which she was one, away from their Aboriginal parents and put them in boarding schools and training homes and didn't allow them to speak their language and didn't see their families or their culture or their country for many, many, many years. And, and I think there's a reconciliation that yet to happen fully in Australia around that. So to put that on screen, to get the Darug language on screen, which we so rarely hear on screen, together with a whole bunch of other languages that make up, our life and our communities, along with those buildings, along with, the Syrian shisha guy is like one of my best friends in the whole world. And he's been telling me that joke, I'm not serious, I'm Syrian, for at least 6 years. So, really, I felt like we were taking moments from our life and people from our life and putting them in the film, which I think it would have been a nightmare to cast if that weren't the case. But luckily they were all already in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a beautiful film. I really was touched by it, but and we'll let you go. We want to thank you so much for being here. But I also wanted to say I loved that there was that sort of epilogue where we kind of find out what happens a little bit after. And I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but it just felt so hopeful. I mean, the movie had so many complexities with friendships and cultural identity and all of the things, and kind of towards the end you're not really sure where it's going to go or what's going to happen, which I think is the beauty of a really well-written movie. But
thank you.
I just really loved the very unseen and just how sort of hopeful and joyful it felt with dance. There's so much dance is also a big part of this movie. And so I just was so touched by it. And we just want to thank you guys so much for joining us today. We just really appreciate it. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, I've had fun. I enjoyed chatting with you both. Thank you for having us. And I'm so touched and glad that you enjoyed the film. It was a joy making it. It was a gift making it. And I'm glad that you loved it. You both loved it. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for picking up on the dance and the joy of dance, because I mean, we have so much, my background's in psychology and my master's in criminology, and we have so much evidence around the power of dance on mental health now, right? We have all the science, but really our cultures have known that forever, that dance is a survival tool, that laughter is a survival tool. This is how we get through. And it is a universal language. And so it makes my day that you said that, like, that part was the part that you really felt at the end. And I think one of our goals, Bolude, was for people to be like dancing out of the theater, out of the cinema, when they see the film, because I remember how much joy films that did that for me brought. So thank you for dancing out of the watching of the film, and I hope everybody else does too.
All right. Thank you, Michela and Bolude, for joining us. Carmen and Bolude, I understand, will be streaming in the US in July
10th, worldwide.
Yay!
And we want to thank our viewers for watching us. As always, you can find us on our socials, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and we'll see you next time right here in the Clubhouse.
Bye. Bye.